Hi everyone, Risthany Pop Tano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of Griselda's WWCD. This is the highly anticipated joint album from the main brains over at Griselda Records, Westside Gunn, Benny the Butcher, Conway, three of the hottest artists right now coming out of Buffalo, New York, essentially putting the city on the hip-hop map in the past couple of years. A lot of the Griselda hype has been building up to this point, this collaborative effort out now on Shady Records, and even though it's here, it still feels unreal. Not just because of Griselda's meteoric rise to industry credibility, but also the independence and artistic freedom they've been able to maintain while gaining so much popularity. It's rare you have artists who are connected to Jay-Z, connected to Eminem, and yet they are still putting out records and mixtapes on their own label at their own prolific pace. In the grander scheme of Griselda's plan, as essential as this project may be, it seems more like a bit of a detour, as the end goal still seems to be to build Griselda's brand up from the ground up and own it all the way. And even though in the past, while I have been a little underwhelmed by solo Westside projects and solo Benny projects, I'm hoping that hopping on tracks together will be a surefire formula for keeping things from feeling one-dimensional. Also exciting to hear these guys worked exclusively with Derringer and Beat Butcha for the entirety of this project, and rumor has it that they used absolutely no samples on this project. No samples, all original music. So WWCD is 12 tracks and a remix of the Conway song Bang featuring Eminem at the very end. And even though Griselda doesn't exceed my expectations on this project, WWCD still shapes up to be everything I hoped an album from these guys coming together would be. This thing features a pretty tight 46-minute run, no track list fillers, no weird 1-minute bridges to nowhere, no poor excuses for beats, no structureless verses that just drag on forever, and there's a pretty exciting chemistry between these three guys that's undeniable. They bring out the best in each other, creating something more versatile than the respective Griselda solo efforts over the past year or so. But again, my major issue with this project is that it does not exceed my expectations. All these voices and ideas coming together, it's just not greater than the sum of its parts. I mean, sure, Benny and Conway and Westside all reinforce each other pretty well. It's like the effect of taking one line of coke, and then another line of coke, and then a third line of coke. They're certainly not a trio sounding heavier on the scale than they are right now, but it's not like because they've gotten together on a record, all of a sudden they're top-notch storytellers with the most vivid narratives and wordplay. This thing is not an only built for Cuban links. It's not even a Hell Hath No Fury. Lyrically, I would say each member of Griselda is still delivering pretty surface-level drug and gun talk. Sure, their dedication to these topics feels a lot realer than when most rappers will just casually mention them, and it feels borderline cinematic too when these guys land on a particularly eerie beat. Like the two-note progression quietly wailing away in the background of Chef DRED'S, it makes it sound like something bad is gonna happen. Or with the track Scotties, which features these wobbly, detuned chords that sound like something off of a Halloween Effects tape. Or with City on the Map, featuring these lightly droning bass notes, icy, elongated piano chords. Sounds like something out of a creepy detective show soundtrack. So with instrumentals like these combined with Conway bars like, so if it's smoke, we ain't even asking, we just pulling up and somebody gonna see a casket, it's grittiness you can cut with a knife. There are some other strong and potent emotions on this project too that are worth pointing out. Like with Westside's very focused verse on FREDDIE HOTSPOT where he goes at length about a murder attempt and feeling very paranoid. The heart-pumping intensity of having a brush with death hits pretty hard on this one. But still, moments that are this topical and this narrative are pretty rare on WWCD. Sometimes the most you can hope for on this one is a great beat, gruff rapping, and a handful of quotables to rise up out of the piles upon piles of coke. Like on this fantastic set of bars from Benny, or on the track Chef DRED'S, which is maybe the most lyrical slugfest on the entire project, with Conway and Benny and Westside constantly switching off bars between each other. There are some equally awesome trade-offs in the first portion of the track Scotties too. And while all these guys do have their moments on this project, I will say there is a pretty apparent talent gap within Griselda. Benny the Butcher is easily the most lyrical, technical, and methodical rapper of the trio. Meanwhile, Westside makes up for most of his technical and lyrical shortcomings by just having a very standout voice and delivery. Though it's pretty hard to ignore when he obviously runs out of ideas, like toward the tail end of Cruiserweight Coke, where it feels less like he's rapping and more like he's just making random idle threats that the song really could have done without. There are a few tracks in the track list here that maybe feel a bit redundant, maybe not as potent, especially Moselle. And my only other major issue with WWCD has to be the features, some of which don't even really complement the record, like Novel at the very end of the 7-minute long Old Groove. His appearance coincides with this really random, weird, jazzy beat switch. His delivery is much more bright and soulful than anything else on the record. It just sticks out awkwardly. Also, the Eminem feature at the very end is annoying as hell. I mean, look, I give Griselda credit for putting it at the very finish because most Griselda fans are not trying to hear that. The best appearance on this thing easily is, again, actually 50 Cent. And while I think it's great that 50 sounds more cold-blooded here than he has in years, when 50 is your best guest on your project, you know you're kind of starting from a low bar. Look, overall, I think WWCD is pretty good. There are a number of ways which it could have been better, but this thing was very much still worth the hype. It's also good to not just see the lion's share of this genre's attention going to guys like Pusha T and Freddie Gibbs. I can also see why guys like Raekwon see Griselda in a way as a bit of a spiritual successor to a lot of his work back in the day, because in a way it is. I'm feeling a strong 6 to a light 7 on this one. Tran, Zishan, have you given this album a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best, you're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like. Please subscribe and please don't cry. Hit the bell as well. Over here next to my head is another video you can check out. Hit that up or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, Griselda, forever.